Hey, I'm Jamey from Still My R Games, and I'm so excited today to talk about a game that I've been wanting to play for a long time, First Rat. I just played it last night with 5 total people. Susanna was so kind to bring and teach this game to us, and I just had a blast with it. There are a few mechanisms that I really like in this game, but let me start with the tracks, because this game has tracks upon tracks, and a lot of them are one-way action tracks, one of my favorite style of tracks, like where you can skip over spaces moving in one direction, but you can't move back once you do that. The game has some interesting workarounds around that one-way mechanism, but it also just has multiple tracks, a total of 3, I believe, tracks that work kind of like that. At its core are these big oval spaces where you are moving one or more rats along this track. So on your turn, you're either moving one of your rats 5 spaces forward along those ovals to gain the benefit on the space that you end up on, so 1 to 5 spaces, or you can choose any number of rats that you have. You start with 2, you can have a total of 4 at certain times on the board. You can move any number of those rats, but they can each only move up to 3 spaces, and they must all move onto the same type of space. The spaces are different colors. So if I have a few rats lined up and within that 1 to 3 range, they could all move onto a blue space. I can move them all onto different blue spaces, different spaces at that, and gain multiple benefits. Both of those provide clever decisions. Do I use one rat to run ahead and gain something that I really want and get ahead of the other players? Or do I try to line up multiple rats so I can gain multiple benefits on the same turn? That's really cool, that core action space. Paired with that, though, I think is my favorite track, or maybe not, because there are 2 tracks that are really clever in addition to that core track. One of them is the light bulb track. So you see these little light bulbs, they light the way along this path. Each player starts with a light bulb at the beginning, a light bulb icon or token at the beginning of this track. And one of the benefits that you can get specifically from the blue spaces is to advance your light bulb token. And what that means is say I've advanced my light bulb to this space. If I end my turn with a rat on any of these 3 spaces, so up to and before your light bulb, you gain 1 additional benefit for that space. So you gain +1 benefit. It adds +1 to that benefit, which feels really good. So early on in the game, I was playing with a partner. Megan and I were playing together on our team because we actually had 6 players. We spent a lot of time advancing our light bulb so that all of our rats would be more powerful as they moved up along this track, along the main track, because the light bulb is basically upgrading every single space along the way. I love upgrades in games. So that felt really good. The other track, so that might be my favorite, but maybe because we just focused on it in our first game. The other track, that I think is really cleverly designed is best shown, I think, in the rulebook right here. It's a track where you start right here, and you're moving around this track, and you can either cut off at each of these corners. So I could cut off here and go back up. I can keep on going and cut off here and go up, or I can keep on going here and cut off and go up here. Actually, I have to go up here if I get that far on the track. These are 3 different sections with 3 different benefits. It's a really clever track mechanism. I'd love to see this in other games too, because it works so well. In this track, you are gaining engine building special powers. They're variable per game. This area here, so if I turn right here and end up on this space or end up past that space, I gain a new rat. So that's where I can get extra rats. And over here are victory points. So early on in the game, you're either thinking engine building or more rats. Typically, the first thing you're thinking of is engine building. And then as the game progresses, you want more rats. And then as the game progresses, you want victory points on this little victory point path. But I just think this is so well designed, both in terms of the decision points. Do I turn around the corner here? Do I keep going? Along with the different stages of the game. The designers are designers? Yeah, 2 designers. Gabrielle and Virginio realized that early in the game you probably want this. So this is the first thing that you get to, versus more workers, which could be something that you get early in the game, but not necessarily. Versus the victory points, which is something you want late in the game as you go around those tracks. Really well designed one-way action selection path or track there. Let's see what else. The 2 other things that I wanted to mention. One is there are certain spots along this path, and here's one of them up here. So there are some big characters, 3 big characters along the path that your rat, if they end up on a specific space, they can basically visit that character and pay that character cheese to gain a very powerful bonus. There's an engine building bonus, there's a one-time use bonus, and there's a victory point bonus near the end of the track. So again, they are organized in such a way that they matter at different points in the game, which is great. I mentioned that you can pay cheese for these things. The nice little twist here, really clever twist, is that you're a rat. You're a little sneaky. If you want, you can steal the benefit instead of paying the cheese. And there's no real strong negative repercussion for doing this, no strong consequence, except that that rat, if I choose to steal from, say, this character instead of paying them cheese for what they offer, I have to take that rat and I have to start all the way over at the bottom of the track. So this is a little bit of a setback. Part of the game is a race to get your rats to the end to get to more powerful benefits. So it is a setback. But at the same time, if you've been working on light bulbs, for example, or other upgrades, then having a rat start over at the bottom isn't necessarily all that bad. It gives you another opportunity to line up those turns where you can move multiple rats and gain multiple benefits. So it isn't even that bad of a thing. I think most games would have thrown a really strong punishment in here for stealing. This one, it's a setback, but it can actually lead to more powerful turns in the long run. So I really like that ability or that choice to steal if you want to instead of paying for those benefits. Works thematically as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is, you can't really tell here, but on this board, there are two sides of the board. One has everything printed on it. It has these victory point tracks printed on them. On it, it has the oval spaces printed on the board itself. Makes the game easier to set up because there are a lot of tokens in the game. Even in addition to that, there are more tokens you need to put out. But basically, you just put the board down on the table, throw the tokens down on the table. There are a few that need to randomize, but mostly you don't, and you start playing. However, we learned at the end of the game, I flipped over the board and saw that there's another backside of the board that has empty ovals and empty victory point tracks. So instead of using the default mode, you can create a lot of replayability by randomizing those things. I think this is a brilliant choice, a brilliant use of a punch board. Probably only took one punch board and the entire backside of the board, which they just removed the art and graphic design from the back. And really, I think the most clever part is that they included the default so that when you want a quicker setup and you don't care as much about the variability, because there is plenty of variability even on the printed board, you use the printed board. But then in addition to that, they have the variable board. I think, and I mention this because I think sometimes games would think, okay, we need to offer all variability out of the gate for every game, and they would have only gone with the backside of the board where you have significantly more setup. That doesn't even matter all that much because there's plenty of replayability in terms of the decisions you make and what other players choose throughout the game. So I like that both options are there. When you want a lot more replayability, you can add it to that backside of the board, but there's the default board that's always easy to get to the table. Really clever choice there by the designers and the publisher. So yeah, tracks upon tracks, the stealing, the double-sided board, lots to love about First Rat. I can't wait to play it again. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below if you've played this game or if you can think of other games that use similar mechanisms. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.